Welcome back to another Linux Gamecast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, we finally get some closure on the topic of Half-Life 3. No, seriously, for once, I'm not joking. And Nekro gets Neknoped, and the developer is maintaining radio silence.
Viva la checking account! No, sorry, not Vive, the other thing. And you know Godot is 2.0 and is a go for show. I'm not apologizing for that one.
Is your PC beefy enough for the Vive? Valve needs you to run Windows to figure that out. And feral quote-unquote hotfixes XCOM 2. I guess it could still be qualified as a hotfix since it's only been, 3 weeks?
Technically, I'm Ben Stone here at LGC Actual, running the board, switching the bits, joined every week by a tame Canadian podcaster from Canada.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hello, and I'm Portugal. Pedro.
Hello.
The coughing Mateus.
I have a cold.
Yes, he does. And together with Chat Realm Dynamic, every week, we form that special bit known as Cocaine Voltron. Before we get going into the news and the steamy bits, let's take a moment. We like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. I'm going to go ahead and start this off because if you're a Patreon, next week, you're going to love Trying Again. It is the most hilarious thing we have ever recorded, and I'm not making that up. I mean, we were losing.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of airplane noises, let me tell you.
We were not able to maintain composure, but I'm not going to spoil that. But also do want to give a quick shout out to Flibbity Ibbity Jaibo, because he has a Patreon.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who he is, you should, because he's pretty much helped out a lot of games get to the Linux with his XNA, FNA. So, head over there. It'll be in the notes. It's Patreon, Flibbity rolls right off the tongue.
Link.
Yeah. Do that business. So what's up, J-Baby?
Oh, I made an interesting discovery about Amazon Linux and their inability to handle encrypted disks. I'm not going to go into it because that is a long, boring story, but nonetheless, fuck Amazon Linux and its stupid monkey butthole.
Well, on my end, I say fuck Cinnamon, because I was watching last week's episode, and when the review started, I actually looked at the video to see what was going on, and there was tearing everywhere. And I mean freaking everywhere. So now I'm running LXDE, because from my test recordings, there was no tearing to be found.
Everywhere.
Well, one thing that is everywhere every week is the horse.
Yeah, the horse is getting a bit pricier. I think it wants a bit of a pay raise. It's our Steelix update. All right, enough of that. So this is from Tom's Hardware, and we finally have a word on what the HTC Vive la France will cost, and it'll set you back about $800. To put that into perspective, that's about as much as what you're going to be paying for a 980 Ti. But you get some good stuff with that. It comes with the controllers included and 2 base stations, so you can plug this into multiple machines in case you're in your VR trance and wandering between rooms and falling off stairs and attempting to ride a bicycle and so on and so forth. But this comes as an interesting point of comparison. The Oculus Rift is going to cost about $600, and that just includes the headset. You got to pay for the controllers and all the other accessories separately. So when you factor that in, they about cost the same amount.
Roughly the same amount, man. I mean, I was definitely looking at it because we know the big hubbub with the Oculus was, this is going to be about Trividi.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But
and even like from the get-go, HTC and Valve was like, this shite is going to be expensive, yo. I mean, and it comes with like 2 lighthouses, and it looks like a fully functional. The controllers are there, and they were all built from day one, unlike the Oculus that is having stuff just tacked on to
well,
it.
and I mean, they pushed back the Vive as well, so that they could integrate the front-facing camera in all the models.
And from the story, I mean, I just want to quote, it's the extra 200 gets you what HTC and Valve called the quote-unquote complete package.
As I said before, it comes with basically everything. With Oculus, you'd have to pay for everything separately. But this kind of throws a monkey wrench into this whole accessible VR gaming stuff, because you can quite literally build a gaming computer for about what you'll be paying for this. And the gaming computer you would build for this price isn't even one that can run the VR system. So I don't know what that's about. I say wait for Gen 2, if anything, because number one, that'll prove whether this is a viable business model, and you're probably going to get a drop in price. And if not, the Gen 1 stuff will at least drop in price, and you can pick that up for cheaps.
Well, P-Man, what type of Linux PC should we have to build in order to test it?
Apparently, you can't run Linux if you want to run VR, because according to Valve, you need Windows. Yes, that's right. Valve released the Steam VR performance test on the Steam store, which is only for Windows. That's right. I saw a couple of people on my friends list actually start it up. I'm like, what the hell is that? So I went looking it up, and oh, it's Windows only. Huh. Now, I have to ask, is Valve pulling an Oculus?
No, of course not. So, like, here's the reality of the situation. Number one, if you're running Linux as a gaming PC, you probably already know whether your system can handle VR or not. Number two, the sad reality is if they're going to compete with Oculus, which is Windows only, they're going to have to make sure that the performance is at least with parity with the rival offering. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. But then again, Valve and Gabe Newell actually came up on stage and said that Linux is the future of gaming. That's a thing he said.
It's also the year of the Linux desktop, Pedro.
Hold on. But stuff that was supposed to be already in SteamOS, like the Steam broadcasting, is still not available for Linux. So at this point, I really have to start questioning that whole Linux is the future of gaming thing.
Something Valve time, son. I'm not really going to get onto it, especially with the broadcasting, because I think they're definitely waiting a little bit more on the Vulkans and the NVIDIAs to get the drivers and all that working together. So I'm going to give them a hard time. And yeah, we pretty much everyone knew this was going to launch Windows first, right, P-Man?
Yeah. It
makes sense. It is the biggest slice of pie, as it were. 95%, was it? Last time they checked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, like, as you were saying weeks and weeks ago, the Steam machines and whatnot are really going to start getting a foothold in a couple years, because they've already announced that the Xbox 2, or whatever the hell they're going to be calling it, is going to be coming out soon. The current generation of console hasn't even had the half-life of the last generation. So a machine that you only need to pay a fraction of the cost to upgrade is very attractive to most consumers.
And one that is inherently backwards compatible, contrary to the current lineup of consoles.
It's true. And, now that Vulkan is a real boy, there should be a larger increase in cross-platform games because, again, you only have to develop your code base for your graphics renderer once. Well, at least until Eon creates a DirectX 12 to Vulkan wrapper, then we're all fucked.
You just go to hell and die for even bringing that up. But speaking of Half-Lives, it's confirmed.
Oh, yes. So, speaking of the
VR demo,
VR test, some enterprising young hackers have ran this through a decompiler, and they have some interesting stuff in here. We got a lot of Source 2 assets. So the VR test will work on Linux because Source 2 was built to be cross-platform from the ground up. And there's some interesting things that they found rooting around in the decompiled code base. A lot of HL3 named assets. I've brought it up before. That, oh god, that's just fucking creepy. That's like the ultimate pedo stash. It's Pedro's facial hair times if you map that into a texture. Now there's a lot of Source 2 assets in there. And if you scroll down a bit, the interesting bits are files. There are a couple labeled for HL3 with procedural quest and whatnot, which actually lends a bit of credence. We covered a story a while ago from that supposed leak about what Half-Life 3 is going to be. This sort of lends some legitimacy to that.
I don't know,
sort
man. Sort of, maybe. You're talking about a post that was posted to our Half-Life that was posted and taken down like that, and it's like it never happened. Then Streisand kicked in and it went everywhere.
Oh, of course,
by a supposed Valve employee that said yes, Half-Life 3 is going to be different, and the fact that it's going to be more of an open world with a quest type system. And I was like, ooh, speculation. Let's get the popcorn, Pedro.
Nowadays, sandbox open world games are, well, the bee's knees. I blame Skyrim for that. But it would be nice. It would be nice for Valve at least once to release a game with a 3 on the end. It remains to be seen whether it'll be Half-Life 3, Half-Life 2 Episode 3, or, I don't know, Left 4 Dead 3, Portal 3, Team Fortress 3.
There's some files in here that indicate that Left 4 Dead 3 is totally going to be a thing as well. But again, this is a decompiled dump, so because the Source 2 engine was built to support Half-Life 3, of course there's going to be some named assets in there. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Valve doesn't leak anything, okay? This is just like market research. Let's throw it out there. But somebody got tired of waiting, Brad.
Speaking of Episode 3, yeah.
Episode 3, The Closure. Brinklin. Yeah, it's out. I mean, it's a thing. It's Episode 3, The Closure for Half-Life 2, Episode 2. Has anybody taken the Pepsi challenge on this yet?
I've not, but let's say this. This is fanon pure and simple. This is a fan-made mod for Half-Life 2 Episode 2. And I'm taking bets here. How much do you want to actually bet that everything that this game establishes is invalidated in the first hour of Half-Life 3?
Nothing, because, I mean, Valve will just change everything just to be spidey about it, man.
Oh, yeah, push the game back by another 2 years to completely... Yeah, they actually just guessed the plot of Half-Life 3.
To get this up and running. Now, we don't have any confirmation because this came out just before the show. It does require the SDK base 2013, which is available for Linux, so maybe there's hope.
Yes, it is.
So definitely look into that if you're trying to get your hot fix.
But yes, speaking of hot fixes, XCOM 2 finally gets a much needed performance update. The Mac and Linux versions, they got an update from Feral, obviously, and they include a lot of NVIDIA related fixes. I was reading through that. I'm like,
are ye surprised? They say on the tin that we're only supporting NVIDIA cards, so.
Yeah, I mean, under Linux right now, if you're using Intel, you're stuck with OpenGL 3.3, so probably you may want to support
if you're using
Linux.
AMD or Monster Cameron, so.
I don't know, with XCOM 2, brilliant game. Absolutely brilliant game, and we really couldn't bring ourselves to even remotely blame Feral for the performance, because it pretty much performed like the Windows version did, like ass. I'm pretty much going to stick to what I originally said. I'm going to give this thing about a year, 6 more of these updates. Then I'm sure we will have an absolutely fantastically playable game, much like XCOM 1.
To be fair, all things considered, at this point, the performance is actually a hell of a lot better right now. I had a chance to try it out this week. It's much smoother. The loading times, for me at least, were considerably reduced. Truggleswick, I was talking to him, he's actually in chat realm right now. I was talking to him earlier this week, and he said that, yeah, it runs a hell of a lot better now, but it's gotten a bit more spike crashy, as it were. And also, they have apparently, with this patch, introduced a little check that checks whether or not you're running the GLVND NVIDIA drivers. And if you are, you get a little nasty pop-up, which I got, that says your driver/video card is not supported. And I'm running a GTX 970 Strix with the 361.28 drivers.
And you should actually be running the 550028 drivers. We're going to talk about this later. But those are the Vulkan E-bit NVIDIA drivers. And if you want to test out your awesome Vulkan games, you might want to check this out. They also apparently learned their lesson from Grid Autosport, because one of the patch notes indicates fixed a crash on launch when VPN or other virtual networks.
No. You see, what that was about, that was because the A-team that was working on Batman Arkham Asylum is now working on XCOM 2. So
on
now,
XCOM, that's a show.
We know how to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But it's time to rip in peace for Nekro.
It is, Brad. Nekro. We've talked about this several times. They sent us copies over a year ago.
A long time
coming up, Action RPG. It was just good looking, performed pretty good, had a good story. You get to play as a bad guy. Still has a page, Brad, but if you take a look around, there's nowhere to pick it up anymore. And this comes on the news from I would say about 3, possibly 4 weeks ago, the developer posted a thing in the discussion forums on Steam. He says, well, what's coming up for development in 2016, he threw in, and I hate being cynical like this, but he's like, well, that family issues. I was like, red flag right there. I've read that too many times from too many people. And he's still going to work on it. This doesn't bode well for still going to work on it when it's no longer for sale, and he has not communicated since that post.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Stanley Parable guy kind of gave a similar response, except not family issues, was mean, cranky Linux users. But that actually did get a final release.
But it's not that this is just not available for Linux.
That's true. This is not available, period. And I really have to give it the old boo earns, because it's sad. I mean, this was one of the few well-performing Unity games, at least at the time. Their performance tanked with the later patch. And it had a neat concept. It was a single-player MOBA with some fun gameplay. And it's sad to see a good game like this fizzle out and die.
And it was a very good game as far as early access titles go, because if you look at the reviews that it's getting right now, it's still at 80% positive reviews. When this first launched in early access, it was stupidly feature complete as far as early access goes. Again,
right, and some things happened, and it originally had multiplayer that was removed, and it's promised to be coming back to it. One thing that just hurt my brain organ was there are people in just like straight up Stockholm syndrome in the discussion forums going, it's fine, everything's fine, guys. You know, it's the webcomic with a dog and everything's on fire. Right.
Gun show. Yeah. This is fine. This is exactly, the situation is exactly what I want it to be. But
right.
I think you need to get
completely unreal. Yeah. So Unreal World, it is, as they describe it, a cult classic, open-ended wilderness survival roguelike RPG taking place in the ancient north. Now, looking at the graphics, it looks more like Ski Free for me, but whatever. I mean, it's 2016 now, and this game started... When did it start development, Fenton?
The original development for this game started in 1992, and
it looks like an Ultima game from around that time.
Well,
too.
I mean, you look at this, gentlemen. I mean, there has been progression made. I mean, in 2007, they stopped using 256 color mode. So,
damn, son.
That's what I'd say about that.
16-bit now.
But what is it? It's just a role-playing game that is heavily based on...
They describe it sort of as a top-down roguelike RPG, as it were. It's one of those terms that gets brandished a lot when it comes to Steam games. They also say that it has been praised for its incredible depth, realism, atmosphere, and immersion. Now, I'm not sure what...
I mean, you can hate them. The people who like this game really... I mean, these are the type of people that'll take you out back and
you can get immersed in anything, really.
Right. I'm not saying
sure
it's good.
What exactly these developers think it means, but anything from the 90s nowadays doesn't look particularly good. If you take a look at the review we did of Avengers a while back, we weren't particularly kind when it came to the Shiny and Sounds segment. And maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but anything outside of Fallout 2 for me nowadays just looks awful.
That's because you need to get Brian Cargo's balls out of your mouth.
Can we stop with the nostalgia plague that's been afflicting the games industry for the past decade, courtesy of Kickstarter? I mean, yeah, the 21st century is scary, but come on.
I call horse shit on that. But moving on, are you my mummy? No, this is not a Doctor Who game. This is Where's My Mummy, a game where you play a piece of shit and someone's large intestine trying to get your way out. I don't know, man. Mr. Hanky approves of this. That one. It like watching the video, it's basically for the awesome, but with poop and in 2 dimensions. And it's going to be available in March 2016 apparently, so you can pick this shit up.
Come on, let me winks. There it is. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, apparently you can transform into different types of shit, which I find interesting. And it also requires a very elusive CPU, because apparently Intel produced a single series of 32-bit i3 processors that are required. You don't even need a video card, though. Just this i3 32-bit processor.
Well, I mean...
And 500 megabytes.
All I can say is, I'm pretty sure this game will be the shit. So.
Yeah. It's really going to start a movement, isn't it, in gaming?
Okay.
The shit.
Let's go.
Yes. So, speaking of shit, or, well, not so much. Square Enix, again, like I mentioned in Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays earlier this week, I actually put Squeenix in the show notes for this one, but since they sent us keys for the game, I have to say Square Enix has officially published its first Linux game. And
no, that's not true. Wakfu.
No, that wasn't a Square Enix game the first time on release. Right, they bought it afterwards, but yeah, this one is the first official published Square Enix game and developed by Square Enix Montreal for Linux. Although, admittedly, this is as much a Hitman game as Arma Tactics is an Arma game. So, what is this? This is basically an Android port of the clicky, grid action-based Hitman game that they released for, Android and iOS a while back. It's easy to learn and difficult to master, according to the little blurb on the side of the Steam store page there. It runs. I'll give him that.
It runs. I played around with it. I gave it about 6 minutes and just progressing through it. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Then you can see there's some elements in there. You're like, oh, you get a bonus if you don't kill anyone. I'll never get that one. But as you were saying, this has nothing to do with Hitman other than the intellectual property attached to it. So
yep. And it lends credence to the whole that 2013 Tomb Raider game coming to Linux. It doesn't do a damn thing to alleviate my Eon concerns, but hey, it's there.
Yeah, mobile shovelware is always a good sign that we're going to get some good first-party support from Squeenix, which I will not call it Square Enix. It is Squeenix, and will always be Squeenix. But you're a sneaky fucker, aren't you, Pedro? You can't trust those Portuguese.
Yes, I am. And I like a good stealth 'em up, as they used to be called back in the Thief days. But this is Shadwin, and it is one of those games that it's going to, we're going to be talking about Super Hot next, but that's a little bit of a spoiler. And time doesn't move in this game unless you're moving yourself or holding down the shift key, which apparently Ven's a big fan of. And you have to sneak around guards and try to infiltrate a castle. And the whole thing about this is that this isn't actually a game yet. This is just a demo. And the more people play the demo and the more that demo rises in the rankings in Steam, the less the final game will cost.
But who made it, Pedro?
Yeah, man.
What?
Okay, this was made by Frozen Byte. The people might know him from Trine and our Trine Again series. First thing I noticed was the Trine screen of like, oh, god damn it, this thing. All right, I know who made this, which I wasn't even paying attention. I was like, oh, I know this. And I also knew it because it does not support UHD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ironic thing about that Frozen Byte screen of Nope, as it were, is that you can control it with the controller. I tried it on the Steam box and I saw a little thing come up and I'm like, oh, I might need a mouse and keyboard for this. But then which is odd D-pad.
Because for Trine 2, you can control it with a controller. So
yeah, and then I hit the D-pad. Oh, it's actually moving around. All right, so I changed the settings and I started it. And the moment it got in game, I could move. None of the buttons on the controller were responding. So I grabbed the mouse and the keyboard and I went to the options menu, changed it to the controller. Oh, hey, now I can control it. It doesn't make a whole of a lot of sense.
See, one of the things that bothered me is much like Trine 3, this thing can't really figure out how to full screen 1080p properly at UHD. What it does is it takes up a little itty-bitty corner of my monitor, taken over where I have Pulp Fiction playing, and does not lock your cursor. So the game is essentially unplayable if you want to move the camera around. And seriously, like, Frozen Bright, I love you. You've been supporting Linux for a while. Stop it with the screen of nope. It's 2016. All this shit can be configured in-game. If it needs to be launch parameters, you're doing it wrong.
Well,
And hey,
go ahead.
if you're going to have a screen of nope, at least let people change the controller, well, the control scheme from the keyboard and mouse to the controller on that very same screen. Just saying.
Just like Unity 4, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting mechanic that they have that time doesn't move unless you move and all that. And
you also have the braid rewind thing.
Yeah, and you really got to give them credit for originality. Anyway,
it's a neat concept.
Superhot's a game that doesn't move until you move. It's a first-person shooter.
I think maybe we should flip the order of these two stories. Am I right?
Conveniently placed ammo drops and all that. I watched the Total Biscuit play it, and he got giddy about it. And I was like, I don't know, Brad. Then I scrolled down. I was like, whoa. 24.99 what stinky caches? I don't know if I'm necessarily going to get that much enjoyment out of it. I'm not necessarily price sensitive, but I'm just like,
it's 30 Canadian, man. Right. That's a bit much.
Good on them for the day one release. P-Man, is this thing any more than Twitch bait? Does it have legs?
Honestly, no, because the real enjoyment that this game has is watching different people tackle the exact same problem that you did, or, you know, being a cheapo bastard that doesn't want to pay for the game and just watching it on YouTube, because that's what most people do. And, you know, for a game that doesn't have any textures or really much of anything in the way of graphic design, Minecraft, watching that instead of actually paying 30 Canadian dollars or 25 US dollars or 23 euros, I can't really blame them.
I don't know. I mean, it looks neat. Definitely something that started off as like one of the, 7-day game jam titles a couple of years back. And if it's your thing, you're going to have fun with it. Steam Refund is definitely a thing. If you don't like it, I
remember playing.
Going to wait for it to either go on sale or maybe we'll get some keys in. We'll take a look at it.
But coming
the prototype
next,
for this one,
well, apparently not.
It was a prototype for this one, came out in like 2014, 2013, something along those lines. So it's been a while.
All right, take us out.
So coming up next, Intel gets benched. And we whine about Dive Kick.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this would usually be the news segment. But first, we have some very special people we'd like to thank.
Yep, 69 of them, giggity, as it were. If you head on over to linuxgamecast.com/support the chosen. Motherfucker, I'll get that right once. God damn it. Support the Chosen. We got Patreon links. We got PayPal links. We got an Amazon affiliate link that costs you nothing, but helps us by giving us that microtransacty goodness. If you want to donate to us in a recurring manner, you can always head on over to patreon.com/LinuxGameCast. There's a link to that at linuxgamecast.com/support the Chosen, where we have 69 wonderful people funding us for every week we put out this garbage. We got some new people added to the roster. Who are they? They are, as I scroll up in the show notes, Matt L., Douglas H., and Razma Huata. And they are wonderful, wonderful people who we love, but to the bottom of those little black coal-like things we have in our chests. But we got some lovely goals coming up. We have, 2 more episodes of Weekly Daily Wednesday left. If you want to see more of that, if you're enjoying that every Wednesday to watching Pedro and Ven just completely cock about middle of the day, we need $2 more bucks. Really, we need $1.96, but that will get us to the $135 tier. And of course, if you just want to support the show, we're all only asking really for about 5 cents. It gets you access to a lot of our Patreon exclusive videos that we throw up. Some horrible stuff that should never see the light of day, but if you're interested, you can pay for it and get it. And hell, if you pledge $2.50 a month or per episode, you get access to our show notes. You get to watch the sausage before it gets made. It's wonderful. It's insane, and you should totally do it. And if you can't, Well, we still love you. Spread the word. We need more viewers.
A couple of things.
Huh?
Well, that 5 cents, because this week we did a new Portal 2 series.
That's true.
This is where Jordan tries to teach old man Tiny Vin how to play Portal 2, and sometimes I'm like, I helped when I figure something out, and I clap alone by myself. And we have a new, we're into trying 3 spoilers, but yeah, the episode that'll be launching Monday.
Launching, get it?
Get it. I was almost tempted just to release that early for everyone because it's so awesome. I don't want to hype it up too much, but you'll get that a week before everyone else. But yeah, man, if we can get up, less than £2 more, it's super easy. If you're on the euro or the pound, because that's when what's the right, pretty damn cheap. And we'll continue doing the Linux Gamecast. Well, it's just Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays where we talk about regular Linux news. Hey, you want another Linux podcast that talks about regular news? Me and B-Man?
No, well, too bad.
Yes.
All right,
so let's get into the news proper. And in true LGC tradition, we start with some drivers. Again, it's the Vulkan drivers. Yes, NVIDIA's
Big 3.
They have released the third iteration of their Vulkan driver, which is 355.00.28. And it still only supports the 600 series or higher. So if you have a 500 Fermi or a 400, whatever it was called, series, you're boned, basically. Yeah, the early reports from this driver say that the Talos principle works considerably better than it did on the .27 version.
Well, we do have a chat realm thread that we were looking in depth in that, and we actually got some good results. Ven is still taking the lead with his overclocked 8150 and a GTX 980. I gave this another whirl with the 28 drivers, and my results were significantly better, partially because I had Steam Overlay disabled, and that just completely tanks performance.
Yeah.
But now it looks like everything for both OpenGL and Vulkan are above 90 FPS, with Vulkan leading by about 3. So my suspicion about why Ven is still pulling ahead is because Vulkan, do it, dance, take off your shirt, woo! No, please don't. We can't stand that much white. My theory is that Vulkan actually prefers physical cores rather than SMT cores. So because Ven's CPU has more integer cores than mine, it's able to thread that a lot better. Which, in the case of Zen, AMD's new architecture, may result in a bit of a performance hit.
I don't know, Brad. Not if they come rolling out with 16 physical cores, son.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I mean,
the thing is,
that's gonna be a thing.
Yeah, the thing is, on my end, I have the FX8370E overclocked at 4.2 gigahertz. I only had like a 7 FERPs gain from regular OpenGL. I was getting like 81.5 something on OpenGL, and I had 88. Exactly 88 average FPS on the Vulkan benchmark.
So are you telling me that at 88 frames a second we'll start seeing some serious shit?
Probably, yeah. A 7 FERPs improvement over OpenGL. I don't know.
I mean, I was definitely seeing it. I mean, I was up to 101 FERPs with the 980 again. And I was like, neat. Let's get some more games. Let's get more testing. I asked a good friend, Mr. Platner, the guy in charge of the NVIDIA drivers for the Linux, and he's like, yeah. So maybe we'll get some more information on that in the future. But speaking of Vulkan, if you want to run a version that is 2 versions out of date and doesn't work with anything, man, Ubuntu has got you covered, man.
Oh yeah, no, right smack dab in the middle. They have 355.00.26. Those Vulkan drivers that don't actually work with anything. So
I kind of shrug emoticon on that, but I'm just putting that in there, especially in the show notes, because maybe in the future they will pull a summer, and that will save you the time of, especially on Ubuntu, logging out and sudo-like dm service stop and all that fun stuff, but it's no reason to whine.
Fun.
Oh, yes. New version of Wine out is 194, and they have the usual motley group of fixes and whatnot. But the big thing that came with this one is that they're adding more and more support for D3D11 and Dive Kick, the first DirectX 11 game they tried to implement, is working. It works great.
Yep.
Using the D3D support. So, I mean, that's really all I'm looking for. Good work, guys. But my prediction is, by year's end, we should have passable D3D11 support for most games in Wine. But what would be really super awesome, chocolatey fudge amazeballs is if the Mesa dudes could actually come up with a D3D11 state tracker, so that now that you have the signed firmware for the NVIDIA and the Radeon cards, you could actually start using DirectX 11 under Linux.
The thing is, they sort of tried to do that with DirectX 10 back in the day, and they sort of discontinued it. So chances are, if they wanted to introduce a D3D11 tracker for that, they would have to reiterate everything that they discarded previously. So yeah, chances are it's not going to happen. But as for the Wine thing, yeah, this is pretty good. I say bring it. We need full DirectX 11 capabilities on Wine. Yes.
Seems legit. Well, let's talk about something that is probably never get Linux.
Oh, yes. This week in Fuck Linux.
Yeah, basically. For my good friends at Carmageddon, well, now we have Carmageddon Max Damage. It will be released on consoles in 2016. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, but aren't they supposed to be working on the Linux and Mac ports? Oh, fuck no. Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's right. This is a new game, and they never mentioned Linux or Mac support. Yay! I mean, really.
I'm feigning surprise.
I want to get their actual quote right. They said, "We haven't given up on Linux. We just need to make the PC game what it needs to be first." And they're talking about Carmageddon Reincarnation, not the new sauce. So if we run this through the DBSotron 9000 here at LGC, it comes out as... we're abandoning Reincarnation and seeing how it's not finished, we no longer have to make good on that Linux port #loophole bitches. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I'm feeling, Brad.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's the thing. At this state, firstly, when I got this email, the first thing I did was hit Control F Linux, and the first result was a comment. Oh, where's the Linux version? Oh, yeah, you guys remember that Linux stretch goal that you said you were going to get to once the Windows version was done?
You mean the first stretch goal on the Kickstarter campaign?
Yeah, the very first one.
Okay.
No, we're getting none of that. And then there were some Windows users going like, where's the DRM-free version? We want some of that. Apparently, it hasn't been delivered. And then I read the actual post, and apparently they say that they haven't provided everyone with the physical rewards to this
that
day.
Are never coming. Never coming. Yeah. They got lost on a bus.
At this point, Rocket League, Street Fighter V, and Tomb Raider will be out for Linux before whatever arbitrary date Stainless gives out for the Linux version. That's, of course, assuming they will even do that, because, judging from their past record, they won't.
Yeah, I'm just saying, man. I mean, Skullgirls will come out before this. Wait. Oh, right. Skullgirls actually came out. And
mind you, they had a volunteer for that. Maybe we should sick Civic on them. I think they deserve it at this point.
Renault, get on it!
All right, it's time for ding, 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 ding. Yes, it's the latest Humble Indie Bundle. That's right. For all you pedants who are still supporting Humble, this is the one that has the cross-platform support. And holy shit, there are some games I haven't seen before. Shock among shocks. You got Never Alone with your Fuck Tales DLC. You got, Outlast.
Fuck Tales.
Trine 3, The Artifacts of Flying Airplanes with your hands, and a couple others. Else, Heart.break, bracket, segfault, and Sunless Sea, which has just released its Linux version. They have some more games coming soon. We've actually thrown chairs at least 2 of these. So make of that what you will. But I mean, they also have a tabletop RPG one, just because I'm a big tabletop nerd and Pathfinder's your thing. It's not mine. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at that, and this came out, it's like, oh, look, 2 games that I either don't own / or give a damn about, and that's Never Alone, and possibly Retro City Rampage. I played that for about 5 minutes, and I was like, yeah, no. The other one, Never Alone, I just call it the Fox game, because who knows what it says. It's busted. I don't know if it hit behind, like, the cultural, like, oh, and it's teaching all that. Maybe it does a good job at that, but the game itself, the gameplay, it is atrocious, man.
Yeah, and on a technical level, it doesn't even do all that well, because on the Steam box, I have the Logitech F310, which basically just emulates a regular old Xbox 360 controller. And it won't register the left analog stick for movement, so I can't move. The only thing I can do when I start the game is jump and do the little action thing that just makes her do a little duck.
It's pretty show title. Pretty for a Unity game, though.
It is, yes. And again, this may have something to do with the fact that this game got raving reviews when it was originally released for Windows. Of course, on Linux, if we actually do throw chairs at it, it's gonna get panned.
Yeah, and of course, guys, don't play Trine 3. You can watch us suffer through that. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be a lot more entertaining than playing this game.
Oh yeah,
but something Bertrand Russell joke, something Andre the Giant. Godot Engine 2.0 is out. And it's stable, and it comes with a couple new things. They have multi-scene rendering, or not multi-scene rendering, they have multi-scene editing, they have scene inheritance, a brand new scene format, a lot of improvements in terms of usability. And it's good. These guys put out a very high-quality open-source engine for all you people who, especially those in the hate mail, who really don't believe that Unreal Engine is open source. But I mean, it's a little difficult to recommend this for potential game devs just because UE4 is free. But they still put out a good quality product. It's a better love story than Leadworks.
Yeah, I mean, this will definitely bring new DLC to Brick Simulator. Get on that. The UI overall, it almost looks sane. You can do 2 scenes at one time. That's kind of neat. But the biggest thing that I was like, oh shit, son, this is really cool, is they have a live editing. So you can actually have the game running and edit on, they're just demoing it with a, your standard Mario jump physics detection collision system and change the sprites and levels around live as you're, I was like, that is seriously cool for something that's completely open source. Peanut?
And apparently MT, Chatrel member MT, you may remember him from being on the show a couple of times. Mr. Mike Tehan, he was very, very bored on Friday because he hit me up on the Hangouts and we were like, oh, hey, look at this. And if you go to linuxga.me, you can actually see what I'm talking about. It's an entire Godot 2.0 menu stimulator, as it were, fully rendered on the browser, and it works. So I'm like, you need to get Brick Simulator running in that, like, immediately. And he's, I just need the source. Hey, HTML5 export all the things.
Indeed. But coming up next, we jack into the Matrix and throw some virtual chairs at NeonXSZ, y'all. Yo, dog, I heard you like 6 degrees of freedom, so I stuck some 6 degrees of freedom in your 6. Well, we're going into cyberspace and playing some not Descent, because we're throwing chairs at NeonXSZ. Or NeonXSZ, whatever. It's from Intravenous Software, developed on the Unity engine. You can pick it up for around 20 of your local currency units. And what is it? Prepare to destroy, loot, pilot, and upgrade endless gunships in a huge sandbox cyberworld where every opponent has a unique intelligence and skill. That's a bit of an overstatement there, Brad. But we're throwing it. We're throwing them. It's a CHAIRQUISITION. It's awesome. let's get it started. 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. And 4 chairs means it's amazeballs. You also have our categories. Oh, Doom, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. It's fun, fun, fun. So let's kick this off then. Did Neon XCOM give it to you, mixed with the working?
X gave me something, but let's just not talk about it in public. How did it run over here on the Ubuntu 1404 LTS? 8150 980 displayed with a 4Ks. Well, Brad, it does that nasty little thing of staying at 2160 when you switch back to 1080p, which is hella annoying because basically you have to restart X, go into that, and give it to it, then readjust it, then restart it, then back then. It's just a horrible thing. Unity, newer versions of Unity have fixed this. This, unfortunately, is not fixed. It does struggle to maintain around 40 FERPs at 1080 with everything on YOLO, but when you look at the game, everything should be on YOLO. But even then, some areas, it does manage to hit around 60, but really don't hold your breath organs for that. It's few and far between. But at least it has cross-platform shite performance. Yes, a Windows user complained about slowdown with their 980 as well. Also, 2016, Brad, no cloud save. What's up with that? I don't like it. I'll give you 3 chairs. It works. It's missing a few things.
Oh, yeah. Much like, well, it's a Unity 4 game, so I had to bust out the pulse MStack latency equals 60 to get actual audio working. So for that, you get
layers of fear.
Yeah, whatever. And like Trine 3 and Shodden, it cannot full screen property, whatever. It sticks itself up in a little itty bitty corner. Not going to neg a chair for that because it's playable in windowed mode. But yeah, it's not good, Brad. 3 chairs.
Yeah, NeonX Curses managed to maintain 60 at around, at 1080p. For me, if I disable all the blur effects and the bloom. Now, I will give it bonus points for the fact that they didn't actually call depth of field what they call distance blur, because most games would just call that, oh yeah, that's totally depth of field. No, they just called it distance blur, so good on them for that. But yeah, the visuals don't really suffer if you actually disable the blur effects and bloom. I'll expand on that on the next segment, but there's definitely a performance gain to be had, just like disabling the Steam overlay to bench the Talos principle with Vulkan. 3 chairs.
All right, that's 3 chairs for mixed with the working. Up next is Shiny and the Sounds. Ben, did it shin or sound, or what's the deal?
What's the deal, Brad? Well, it looks like cyberspace. Air quotes. Whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. It looks exactly like that. Good job. There's so many jaggies in the cockpit, though, and you look at the screenshots, and whatever anti-aliasing they were using for those screenshots didn't make it over to the Linux, because everything cranked up jaggies, and that just... I can put up with jaggies, but yeah, enough to annoy me. But let's talk about the noise. You don't have a fairly nice set of cans here, but for the life of me, I'm unable to make out what RoboLady, aka Betty, is saying. I kind of figured out if you listen hard enough, you're like, maybe that's what she was trying to communicate. But on the topic of the noises, both the guns and the magic missiles, they sound kind of hella muted. It's like, it makes a racket. That's about it. No impact. You don't really get any, like, ooh, yeah, I'm shooting some things. But it does have background music. It does. But unfortunately, today I had to relaunch the game just to confirm that, in fact, it does. That's not a good sign, and not exactly what you would call captivating. So, in all fairness, we have to give it the 2 chairs because it has visuals and it beeps and squawks.
It does. I mean, the soundtrack got muted pretty quickly, and it honestly sounds like they're using Microsoft Bob for the voiceover, which is a really good sign. The colors, they're all over the place and neon and shiny and mad. It looks like a Las Vegas strip, like any building you would see off that. It looks like it. All the models really move really quickly, so I can't really detect what the quality of them is. And just in terms of the UI, everything is all at the bottom of the screen away from the action. So if you want to check your ammo or your health or whatever, it is out of the way. So it gets 2 chairs for that. Ugh.
Yeah, the music and the robot voice, Betty, as Ven already mentioned. They started grading on my ears around 5 minutes in. Suffice it to say that they got muted. The graphics, well, they have that 90s cybernetic theme to them. And, well, nothing is textured, and the cell shading is barely visible because of all the bloom lighting. So I honestly can't really give it anything but 2 chairs.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for the shiny and the sounds, because it did in fact appear and sound like something. Up next is Control.
Controls. You have them. Yeah, it's basically your standard WAS layout. I think it was just this week that the developer broke down and said, fine, I'll implement controller support, because everyone was saying playing a 6DOF without any type of controller joystick support was kind of like driving a car with your teeth. It worked with the XCOM controller. Really no issue. It was almost logically laid out, except for like fire was the start button. Yeah, that was a thing. But the thing about the controls is it controls like a Viper Mark II. Think about that. Controlling a Viper in a closed area. Any civilization advanced enough to build a massive station wouldn't put a 6-degree ship for that exact same reason. Yeah, the controls, they work, but they're rubbish. It's just confusing. Anger throws chairs, and there's only 2 of them.
Yeah, I didn't catch that they added controller support. Otherwise, I would have tested it out with the Steam controller. I did not. It's, I mean, serviceable in terms of like the actual mapping of keys. It makes sense on your standard WASD layout with your pitch and yaw, or with your roll on Q and E and your up down on R and F. And the weird thing is, like, if you right click, it will pause the game so you can go to the menu. Also does the same thing if you hit the escape key. Not sure what the point of that is. But like Ven said, with the amount of tight spaces in here, this control scheme just does not really work because you keep bashing into stuff. And unlike, say, Descent Underground, you take damage when you smack into walls. And as I said before in the Shining Sense, the HUD layout isn't great. It's kind of difficult to tell what is even going on. The map is in like some obscure ass corner of the screen. So when you're actually trying to navigate your way through this labyrinthine, I don't even know what to describe it as. You get lost really, really easily. And it's really difficult to tell what your health is at any given point, because if you look down to check, you will get exploded. So I'll give this 2 chairs. It's not very well thought out.
Yeah, if I had the shield controller plugged in, the only way I could move was by constantly turning left. I'm not kidding. To be fair, this is not the first game to do this. There were a few other games, not a whole lot, but a few that whenever I started, the selection indicator would be going apeshit. But if I just so much as fondled one of the analog sticks, it would stop. Not this game. I had to quit out of it, unplug the shield controller, and then, and only then, would it behave. Now, I played a lot of Wing Commander back in the olden times, so I was sort of expecting your ship to take the turning and movement commands more of a suggestion. In NeonXSZ, if you so much as hit one of the movement keys, the ship will lunge in that direction like it had received a swift kick in the bum. Now, I can't fault the game for not being responsive, because it actually is when it comes to keyboard inputs, but I can fault it for not properly supporting a controller or even a joystick. 2 chairs.
I gotta agree with you, Pedro, on the joystick bit. These sorts of games sort of scream joystick support. But that's 2 chairs for Control. And finally, the fun segment. Ven, did you have fun playing this game?
Loads of it. In an alternate reality where that means I had a good time. What the hell am I supposed to be doing? All right, this game just starts off the bat. Little tutorial, shows you some basic moves, and that tutorial just fucks off and says, have at. And it turns out it's all clear, because I want to get this quote right. To quote the developer, I'm a great believer that storylines in games rarely feel real. and often break immersion. So, what you're telling me...
Oh, boy.
Right. I have to come up with a story, question mark. All right, let me have a go. How about I'm Lieutenant Commander Turbo Weasel, piloting the SS Busted Arse Anti-Leasing. And my 1-hour mission is to fly about aimlessly, shoot at ships, and get killed to death, because that's kind of what's going on. So, how is this game classified, you might be asking yourself? Well, a popular user-defined tags on the Steam say action, indie, RPG, and 60OF. You get a bite-sized Snickers, man. I mean, come on. Seriously, you just deserve it. Good on you. But here's the thing. If I wanted to play a 60OF game that has multiplayer, I'll go play Descent Underground. If I want to play a shooter, I'll play some Quake. If I want an action RPG, I will fire up Middle-earth, Shadow or Hodor. But if I ever want all those things mixed together in a slushy mess, take me the fuck out. Seriously, because I've went mental-er. But in closing, here's the thing. I really don't know what I'm doing, and the damning bits is I don't genuinely care. I got about an hour into this. I managed to complete a few of the fetch quests and all that. Can't really call them quests. I don't even know. Like you're like a delivery boy.
Tasks.
And all that. Right, task. And apparently, get this though, here's the redeeming quality. If I keep on, I can repeat these same experiences for over 100 hours. Looking forward to that. Yeah, and here's the thing. I know it's a solo developer who genuinely seems like a nice lad, but I've seen far, far better projects come from a one-man team.
Dust and Elysian Tale.
Yeah, or what is it? Axiom Verge. Here's the whole thing, man. There's nothing to do with it. I mean, it seems like it was kind of like what it was 2 years ago. So give you one check. Can't not with that price tag either.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of get it. You wander around, you kill shit, and you upgrade. But here's the thing: like when you exit your starting area, if you don't actually read the giant wall of text tutorial, you would not know that a good 80% of the enemies are people you're just supposed to run past and avoid because they will kill you in one shot. And that's I mean, I sort of get it with the open world thing, but it's a bit dumb that like you don't sort of segment this into areas where it's like, oh, you should be level X to explore. And they sort of do if you get to that big hub in the center, but good luck finding it. Like I did one of the fetch, escort, whatever the hell it is, delivery missions. And they sort of give you this reticule that says you are X number of feet away from this target, but it doesn't give you much beyond that. And so you have to go through all these various nooks and crannies. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll find it. This game has a lot working against it. I mean, the soundtrack is annoying, the controls suck, and dogfights basically meant flailing your mouse around and shooting until one of you die. And like I said, it's easy to get lost, and so you just don't know what the fuck you're doing. The leveling up mechanic is a little interesting, as you gotta like kill things and find the upgrade parts to even get them. But I mean, it's not enough to redeem the game. When I first read the game description, it seemed really, really interesting. But it's a neat concept that fails in execution, and Ben hinted at this earlier. The biggest fault, no multiplayer. 60OF games crave, they require multiplayer, so I'm going to give it one chair. Good effort. Sorry, guys. Or guy.
Yeah. If you have a 6 Degrees of Freedom game, one thing you want to see is other people flailing around like a madman, because it'll actually help your ego not feel like, you know, you're a complete numbnuts that's just flailing around in the game. But hey, this is one of those games that on the surface will look a lot like American Truck Simulator or even Euro Truck Simulator 2. You meander around from place to place, delivering stuff while randomly crashing into other vehicles because you can't for the life of Brian get any accurate sense of how big you really are. But both Euro Truck Simulator and American Truck Simulator have a lot more to them than that. Now, in Neon Excavators, it's just kill to get loot that you can sell and buy better crap for your ship, rinse, repeat. Honestly, I couldn't tell you what the end game, quote unquote, is, or if there's even an end game to Neon Excuses. I made the comparison to American Truck Simulator or Euro Truck Simulator, but Neon X Romance seems to be more along the lines of Vengers. Thing is, Vengers came out in 1998, so I feel like it can be excused. And yes, I am aware of the hypocrisy considering what I said in the Steam segment. If you don't know what the Steam segment is, you may want to watch the entire episode. But Vengers hooked me. It had a great soundtrack and a lot of depth to the lore, if you were willing to sort through lines and lines of literal gibberish. Now, NeonX Cogitations, on the other hand, is bland at best and painstakingly boring at worst. 1 chair.
All right, so that gets 1 chair for fun. And if we tally this up, we get 2 chairs with a bite-sized Snickers, which is sort of like the negative asteroid. But
oh, yeah.
Let's close this off, guys.
Well,
all right. Let's put a quick bow in it. Interesting attempt. I mean, this game's been out forever. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it was originally on Desura, so that should tell you something.
It was in a Humble Bundle or 2 as well.
And possibly have been. And yeah, I know it's had Linux support forever. I mean, it's the Unity engine. Good on that. What's the proper expression? Too many cooks in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. It's trying to
There's only the one guy.
The game is trying to be too many things, is what I'm saying. And you need to focus, like Laser Point. What type of game? Is it action, exploratory RPG? Is it you look at the game and you're thinking, oh, it's a Descent game. You get in there, it's like, the fuck's this? And if you're looking for something like quests and stuff like that, you get in there like, what the fuck's this? Because you're in a ship. You know what the fuck you're doing. And with a price tag on Brad, top it off, originally this was going to be released at 25 What Stinky Cashes. The developer did decide to lower it down to about 20. Kind of want to say hold off until Descent is on sale because it's just a better game, even though it is still in early access.
Yeah, Neon Exceptionalities suffers a lot from what other open world sandbox indie games also suffer from. 3079 or 3089, the open sandbox RPGs, and a few other examples. It's like games that aimed far too high and fell far too short. This is an overreaching developer that went in way over his head, and the end results suffer for it. He tried to do a hell of a lot of different things, and he failed at every single one of them.
Yeah, going back to Ven's little quote of the developer about how game storylines very rarely feel real. You know what game has a storyline that actually feels real? XCOM, because you get attached to your little guys. And you end up caring about them, whether they live or die. And you could maybe translate such an experience to this sort of game, but you didn't, Brad. Again, this game had a really cool concept. Exploration, killing, upgrades. It has a lot of good stuff that could have been a fun game, but it really just fell flat. Maybe pick it up if it goes on sale or if it's part of a Humble Bundle. Give it a try. Maybe you'll like it. We didn't. But coming up next, we debate what is and is not open source. And then Stallman devours our souls.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're not watching the live stream, shame on you. We just had a very in-depth discussion about drivers and everything else. Well, if you'd like to get in touch with us and send some hate mail our way, you can go on over to LinuxGameCast.com, push the contact button, fill out the form. It's easy enough. If you're trying to promote a game or some sort of crowdfunding campaign, just make sure to send us some playable builds, Steam keys, whatever. If we can't play it, we're not going to talk about it, and chances are we're going to make fun of you. This week, we didn't get a whole lot of hate mail. We just got the one.
We got some hate though, for sure.
Oh yeah.
This is from Gnarlin. I'm sorry, GNU/Gnarlin. And he says, The Unreal Engine is not open source. It does not fulfill the open source definition. I go by the open source definition as stated on the Open Source Foundation, originally written by Bruce Perens. Found here, and he provides a link. You can find this in our show notes. And he says, I'm sorry if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I like your show. I watch it every time. Ben, you with the first bit of the response,
basically, I was just stating in general terms that the source is available in its progress. Okay, I'm not trying to start up some BSD, MIT versus GPL, LGPL license holy war, because I'll leave that to the man with a beard and the samurai swords, also known as Richard Stallman. #new GNU Linux Gamecast.
And I mean, if we really want to get pedantic about the definition of free Libre software and open source, the two often get confused with one another. And open source itself is somewhat of a nebulous term. Sure, you're using the Open Source Foundation definition, but you could also just take it as say, the source is open and available. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't you just love it when people bring politics into software development?
I'm sorry, it's GNU/politics.
Exactly. I mean, some people enjoy participating with the rest of society instead of just bitching about every ideological difference. I mean, come on.
Listen, you capitalist pig dog. It's GNU/society.
Developing software? Developing games? No. I'm here to argue about the ideological differences between open source and source you can see. Because fuck you.
I mean, that is maybe a discussion worth having, but not on Linux Gamecast, the show where three idiots talk out of their ass about
GNU
games.
plus Linux Gamecast.
Definitely something you got to think about. I mean, send us some hate mail. I mean, everyone in the chat room, if you got some ideas about this, we'll post about it next week because there's a discussion we can have. I think everyone watching this show, when I said, it's open, they knew what the fuck I meant, right? I mean, the source is available, right?
Hell,
there's nobody in the chat room going, but then it is technically not. And it's like, you know what I meant. And hey, man, thanks for watching the show. I mean, it's brilliant. Keep doing that. And we do enjoy your feedback and or hate mail. Because on that bombshell, let's cue the music. You can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Standard Moon Time. I'm Vin Stone, cleverly disguised at Vin Stone on the Twitter nets, where I just hit 500 plus followers. Amazeballs. And Vin Stone over on the G Pluses, where I have like 5,000.
I am Beerware/Jordan Swung. You can find me at MIT/Twitter at The Burning Pool or BSD/Google Plus at plus Jordan Swung.
And I don't have any of those clever things to say. I am just good old Pedro Mateos. You can find me at Unaccounted For on Twitter or plus Pedro Mateos on Google Plus.
Quote, people, good. Just remember, I mean, Unreal Engine 4 is still a better love story than Unity.
Or what Leadworks.
Still worse than Godot.
Leadfuck. Is that still in the store?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, boy.
It's okay. You can get the indie edition that doesn't actually have any features. 5 dudes.